2021 marks the 25th anniversary of the New Basics Brass Band. As we were all discussing on how to celebrate or commemorate 25 years. 25 years. That's a quarter century. That's a long time. I suggested we do a documentary. Only problem is we were in the middle of a pandemic. I had no idea how to tell a story or do a documentary in the middle of a pandemic. So what did we do? Got out the phones, dusted off the memories, and I told a story about some kids from the Midwest who put together a brass band based on their love for New Orleans brass band music and put their own flavor on it. Now we're going to get to the top of the story. Remember, if anybody ever asks you how you get to 25 years, you tell them, just don't quit.
Why did I form New Basics Brass Band? Well, the simplest answer to that is that I wanted a gig. I was getting out of school and getting on with life, and I wanted to keep playing. Rather than waiting for the phone to ring or, because I was doing some subbing and playing with, different kinds of bands, ska bands, funk bands, jazz bands. I decided if I wanted a gig, I would just start a band. And why a brass band? The first time I'd ever been exposed to something like that was after I got out of high school. A buddy of mine that I went to high school with, he had the idea to drive out to the Newport Jazz Festival. So we popped in his little Subaru Justy, drove out there, slept in the car, did that whole deal. And there was an event the night before the festival started at the Newport Casino, which was a grass tennis stadium. And they had a stage set up, and we were sitting in the bleachers, and it was a tribute to Louis Armstrong. So we wanted to make sure to go to that. Of course, being a trumpet player, super huge Louis Armstrong fan, and I wanted to check it out. And it featured Wynton Marsalis, Doc Cheatham, John Faddis. I think Ruby Braff was on that too, cornet player. Those were like the featured artists. And it was backed up by this brass band. I think it was the Liberty Brass Band at the time. And when I heard that, of course I'd been familiar with New Orleans music a little bit, listened to some Louis Armstrong, but I had no idea about that. It's the first time I encountered it live, in a live setting. I was like, man, that's pretty sweet. And I kind of tucked that back in the memory banks. And as time went on, I started listening to that music more, and I started discovered the Dirty Dozen Brass Band and some other brass bands, and kind of got into it as I was going through school.
In the summer of '94, Rob McAbee and I went to the Columbus Jazz and Ribs Fest. And one of the bands playing there was the Olympia Brass Band from New Orleans. They were all dressed in their uniform type of gear. They had the black pants and the white shirts, and they had the black and white hats that they wore. We're listening to them play, and then at one point during their set, Rob turns to me and says, I really want to put a band together like this. I thought, okay, whatever. I didn't really give it much thought at the time, but it wasn't long after that Rob started making some phone calls, putting people together, and we started writing music.
Johnny Bachman was writing ridiculously great music. The late Brian Casey had written some great stuff. I know Aaron Molnar and Dave Bushy and Rob McAbee, they were all writing things that were all so very good. And we just had to learn them, and they had to become our own.
So it took a while to figure out how to write music for this band, but eventually we started getting the hang of it.
So we got together, and around that time, after our first rehearsal, I saw that the Dirty Dozen Brass Band was coming to Columbus, and they're playing at Stashes, that great club called Stashes. So I picked up the telephone, dialed the number, and I called up the club, and this guy named Dan Dugan answered the phone. I said, hey, I saw the Dirty Dozen is coming to town. I lead a brass band. Could we open for them?
So Robbie calls me up, and to tell you the truth, I was not aware there was a brass band in Columbus. So he's asked me if they can open for the Dirty Dozen Brass Band.
So our first gig ever in public was playing at Stash's, opening for the Dirty Dozen, the band that the band was kind of modeled after.
And I'm like, that would be awesome. And they show up. They had people parading around the room.
I guess I just never really thought about what instrument to play. So I had a tuba. I had a big 5/4 size tuba that I was playing on at the time. And I walked in, I'll never forget this. I don't think Rob remembers it, but I remember it. And I walked into the bar, and I'd invited my parents because, of course, this was a big gig. My dad's sitting down in the front of the bar, and I'm playing my tuba, and Rob looks at me and goes, "I kind of thought you'd bring a sousaphone." Well, I didn't own one, right? And so I said, no, man, everybody's doing it on tuba these days. Yeah, sousaphone, that's a thing of the past. And so we get through the show, and we're playing, and we get to talk to the guys, and the guy looks me right in the face and goes, "How long are you going to try to carry that thing around before you can, play the sousaphone? It's a lot easier."
So here are my memories of the first gig. Terrible, awkward, not great. We all had music stands.
That first gig at Stash's, we really didn't know what we were doing. At least I didn't. Maybe everyone else did. But I didn't know what I was doing.
We were all reading off the charts. And it was one of those things where I think we played at least one, if not 2 or 3 actual Dirty Dozen tunes in front of the actual Dirty Dozen.
We had like 3 or 4 songs, maybe 5, but we were supposed to play quite a bit. And I think our idea was we'll just vamp, right? We'll just keep playing. And eventually this magic will happen.
The guys in the band were so gracious to us. They were so supportive and really encouraging.
They were so gracious and they were so nice. That wasn't what I was expecting. I was really expecting these big-time musicians, which they are, and they were then too. But I really expected them to be kind of standoffish and mean, and they weren't. And it was really nice that when we got off the stage, it was, "Yeah, you sound great."
It's one of those things that I've always experienced from great people, great musicians. There's a level of support and humility among those kind of people. But the cool thing is we made our first record in 1997. And when we did that adventure, a couple of the guys from the Dirty Dozen came back through town around that time, and we connected with them, and a couple of them were playing on that record. And we played a couple other shows with them after that. We played that first gig, and then we were kind of off and running. Started booking clubs around town, and we put together a little promo kit and just kind of went at it.
Back in the early days, we seemed like we were working a lot at a lot of different places. We'd take any gigs we could, I think. A lot of it I don't remember. A lot of it was really crazy.
When it comes to playing gigs, there's always something going on. Even the other night, we had Crazy Cowbell Guy come up on stage, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people who just feel like it's time to get up there with the band. Sometimes that works out great. Sometimes we engineer that, and sometimes it's just like rough. But the thing about the band, we played a variety of gigs. On one hand, we will try anything.
Rob always comes up with something crazy that everybody says, "It'll never work," and then it works, like almost all the time.
So, there's lots of opportunities, whether it's doing like an outside parade thing or a club gig or a festival or a private show. But sometimes you see those things and it's like, that was a great idea. And sometimes you do those things and it's like, what were they thinking? Or what were we thinking in doing this gig? And one of those I can think about was Cap City Diner. It's a restaurant, and then you have this brass band in the restaurant right by the tables. And of course, we start playing, and it's like, "Can you guys play any soft?" "Sure." "Play any soft?" "Sure." And at that time, especially, it wasn't a soft playing band. It was like pretty hard, especially when it came to the trumpet players. And Johnny and I were playing trumpet, and there was one of the tunes that kind of went way up high, and when I went to play that part, I was trying to play soft, so I kind of like squeezed in and just tried to squeak it out. So it wasn't too loud in this little restaurant. And when I went to do that, the next thing I know, I was coming to, and I was on my way to the floor. I'd like choked my air off or something, like choked myself out. Came up in time to like kind of catch myself. I think John grabbed my trumpet. So I just immediately got up and went to the bathroom and tried to collect myself. That was our last really intimate restaurant gig.
It was very early on when I was playing with the band. I know we were playing a gig at the Short North Tavern. I think we were covering We Got Robbed or something like that. And in the middle of the song, I'm playing, the band's playing, everything's going just fine, everybody's grooving, and all of a sudden something like taps me like on the top of the head. So I look around and there's nothing. And then like half a second later, there's this splash and it like bounces off and like hits me in the face. And I realize all of a sudden there's like this white chunky stuff all over my drum set. And I'm like, what the heck? And I look up, there was like a drop ceiling and there had been like a leak or something in the apartments above the bar. And there's literally like ceiling tile crumbling and just falling apart and spilling all over my drum set and me at the time. We're still in the middle of the song and I kept playing and it's just like making this horrible mess and like I couldn't do anything about it. It was one of the craziest, like most random things that ever happened and to me while I was playing.
You know, we've played to audiences big and small. More small than big, but some of them are really crazy. There was the one time we played at Dick's Den, and I actually have a photograph from it, which is actually this photograph right here on the wall. From December 12th, 1997, we played at Dick's Den, and that place was packed. It was a party. It was such a party that this was the night where the bar couldn't serve any more mixed drinks because all the glasses were out in the room. They had no more clean glasses to mix drinks with, so they couldn't serve any mixed drinks.
We did a Halloween show there. Counterfeit Heist was great, where we all dressed in drag. There are some scary pictures of that floating around somewhere. I think there might be one of me as Lulu Benson, 6'5", beautiful long hair, bright red lipstick, but I refuse to cut off my goatee, so it's a little frightening.
Okay, so the wild card.
Well, one night we found out that Matt Adams murdered his family.
February of 2006, I had a 2-month-old kid at home. We were playing through our room. We were going to play one more song after this happened, and I remember Rob saying, well, I don't think we're going to play another song. It was getting close to 2 from the back of the room, and it was packed. 3 police officers approached the stage. And they looked right at me and they said, "Are you Matt Adams?" And I said, "Yes, I am, because I am."
The police were waiting for someone on the side of the stage, and as soon as we played the last note, they apprehended Matt Adams.
I don't know if they started to come on stage or not, but I knew that I needed to go with them. I remember at least one of them grabbed me by the forearm pretty aggressively and walked me to the back and out the back of the bar. There were Grove City cops there, multiple cars, at least 4 Ohio State Highway Patrol cops. The number 8 sticks in my head, Columbus cops. There was a paddy wagon, there were a helicopter above, but I don't know why they would have 8 police cars for one person.
I think it took about a half hour to get worked out and figure out that Matt did not do such a thing, and that there wasn't actually a murder that evening.
Dirty Dozen Brass Band, very first New Basics gig. Now, Rob has his own story. I'm sure he's told. However, I'm going to tell you my story from that very first New Basics gig at Stashes. And this is a story that I've never told anybody in the band or outside of the band. So we played first, we got done, whatever. Dirty Dozen gets up there, they play their set, and then at the end of their set, I called New Basics up to the stage to play with them on something. It was probably Saints, is my guess. I was at the very back of the club, or the very front, wherever you want to call it. It was right by the door, far away from the stage. And I was like, oh shit, they're calling us up. I got to go get my horn. So I get my horn, get it out of the case. So I'm walking through and I'm weaving through the crowd and it's dark and I don't see this pitcher of beer. And I knock it with my elbow and spill it all over this place. This full pitcher of beer. And where does it land? But in Kevin Harris's tenor saxophone case. And I'm like, oh, fuck. But I went to the stage and played with the Dirty Dozen. You know, that was my opportunity to play with the Dirty Dozen. So I did that. And then afterwards, after the gig, I walked right by Kevin tending to his saxophone case right when he found out what had happened. I just kept my mouth shut.
One of the most memorable things just over the years is some of the regular gigs that we've had.
Dreamfest, Park Street Tavern,
Barrister Hall,
Shindiggity,
Space Bar,
Mother Stewart's Brewery,
Chelsea's,
Short North Tavern,
Sonny's on Broadway,
Oldfields,
Brothers Drake,
Comfest,
Top Cats,
King Avenue 5,
Playing all up and down High Street.
the Rivari Room,
Rambling House,
Ruby Tuesdays,
501 Jazz Bar,
Flatiron,
the Vanderelli Room,
Vaughn Jazz,
Dick's Den.
the old firehouse.
and the Slovenian Cultural Home.
We played some other places that I don't even think exist anymore. It was hard to keep track of all of it.
and all of those have been great fun. They've been great times, not only just to get together with the band and play and work out new material, just have a really good, regular chance to play together, but also to kind of connect a little bit more with some regular audience members, give them a chance to come out more often to hear us.
Probably our most favorite gigs for me were at Dick's Den. Dick's is a home for jazz in Columbus, and the crowds are always fantastic. The staff is amazing. Everybody's in a party atmosphere. The band plays better over there for some reason. I do. And it's neat having the rhythm section up on that stage, horns out front. The dance floor is always packed. The bar is always packed when we play there. Just a big party.
There's a lot about playing at Dick's Den that is really awesome. Playing on the floor 3 feet or less from the crowd sometimes is one of them, and with New Basics it certainly was. It wasn't in my experience to have a crowd that full, having that much fun, and being that close to them. It was pretty unbelievable.
We got to do some recording with Bootsy Collins, as I remember, in his studio in Cincinnati.
Well, as far as I recall, I think we recorded at Bootsy's place twice. He called it Rehab Studios. Yeah.
We walked in and walking into the studio, and all of a sudden I come down the stairs with my sousaphone, and Bootsy looks up and he says, "A tuba? The hell am I supposed to do with a tuba?" But he had that big grin on his face, and it was fantastic.
The thing that sticks out in my mind the most would be getting the opportunity to meet and work with Bootsy Collins and Fred Wesley. And the way that came about was through an association with Freak Bass. This is a funk band from Cincinnati.
We went over to Bootsy's house in Cincinnati and spent, I don't know, the better part of a day recording one track that I don't know if it was ever used or not. But
Freak Bass has an association with Bootsy Collins and was produced by Bootsy Collins. So I think it was sometime after South by Southwest that Freak Bass said, "Hey, you guys want to come down and meet Bootsy and maybe cut some tracks?" And we're like, "Well, hell yeah, we want to come down there and meet Bootsy Collins." And I don't even think I knew Fred Wesley was going to be there until when we were already down there.
I go around the corner, and who is sitting there but Fred Wesley, the trombone player, JB's and James Brown.
You know, just getting a hang of his vibe was so awesome. And then Fred showed up a little bit later, and he comes in and he lays down some tracks. And then we come in and lay down horn tracks with him. It was just all crazy. I still can't believe that I even got to do that. That was phenomenal, and it was such an influence.
Boy, we've been doing a lot of talking about the New Basics Brass Band and what's been going on over the past 25 years. I think, however, we should take a couple minutes to check out some of the sights and the sounds of the New Basics Brass Band over the past quarter century.
I mean, we're trumpet players. What else are we going to do?
Yeah. What else are you going to do? That's true.
around this great big world. Had my pick of any girl. You'd think I'd be happy, but I'm not. Everybody knows my name, but it's just a crazy game. Whoa, is lonely at the top. Sing along with us if you're feeling good.
I know a girl in New Orleans, Little Liza Jane, prettiest thing you ever seen, Little Liza Jane. I know a girl in Ohio, Little Liza Jane, where the corn grow tall by the Scioto, Little Liza Jane, Ohio. Oh, Little Liza Jane. Come on. Blue jean can send me. Somebody send me. Somebody send me. Somebody send me. Somebody, somebody. Somebody send me. Somebody send me. Somebody send me. It's said and done, I'll soon forget you. Although I know that it'll be so hard to do. You can't shine your shoes and wear a suit. You can wear a suit and look quite cute. You can't hide your face behind a smile. One thing you can't hide is when you're crippled inside. One thing you can't hide is when you're crippled inside. You can't hide when you're crippled inside. So you got me to make you wanna stand. Funky boys in the band got the horn in the hand. You got me to make you wanna stand. I'm playing licks just for kicks to the high demand. You got me to make you wanna stand. I got the slug in the glove and the TV is playing. Oh, you got me to make you wanna stand. New bass spread that funk out across the land. You got me to make you wanna stand. Say you got me to make you wanna stand. Yeah, you got me to make you wanna stand. Say you got me to make you wanna stand.
So So we're going to send you out with this one and, just do whatever you feel like doing, I guess. Thank you all for being here.
After 25 years in the collective experience in the New Basics Brass Band, you would think that there'd be almost no scenario that you could throw at us and that we would think, I don't know what to do. And then 2020 hit. The pandemic hit. None of us knew what to do. And once again, we sort of all had to look around at each other and say, what's next?
I want to talk briefly about what went on during the pandemic. Hopefully, when we see this video, it'll be a long, long time ago past, right?
We had just finished up kind of a busy beginning of the year. We'd done several Mardi Gras shows, some other things. We played for a band member's wedding. Things were going great. Then mid-March, everything changed. By probably a month after that, pretty much all of our gigs for the year had been canceled.
Because we were so busy that week, and then 2 weeks later or a month later, the pandemic hit us. So we were not able to play.
All the work dried up for everyone. All the gigs were canceled, and, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of nobody knowing anything, what's going on, and probably worst of it was just the uncertainty of it all. When were things going to get better? And we're probably still wondering that.
Well, as I sit here now and think about it, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but you got to even go back, a year and a half to where everybody was mentally on a situation, like the apprehension and just the being unsure about what to do, what's safe, what's not safe, along with just the idea of like, how are we supposed to play, or what are we going to do now, and all these things.
So we were kind of wondering what was going to happen at that point.
My biggest thing is that for musicians and artists and audiences, that we realize how important this stuff is, because, man, without the live music, we're hurting. We're really hurting. While we were all kind of shut down and kind of wondering what was going to come next, Rob got a hold of us all and said, hey, we should do these pop-up concerts.
The pop-up shows were pure genius.
Rob and the other guys had the idea to do pop-up shows in the streets of Columbus for people's birthday and celebrations, so we had a lot of fun, and that was one of the only gigs we had.
So the pop-up thing started happening when it actually got started by a fan, a customer, who asked us to come out and play. It was either a birthday or an anniversary.
We had done a couple things like that before, and a few other musicians have been doing similar things, going around on pickup trucks and playing in neighborhoods and things.
And when that came up, I think that was probably April-ish, late March, April. And I checked in with a couple of the guys, and everybody was just like, I don't know. I'm not sure if we're ready for that. I don't know what it's involved. And I was like, well, okay. And I turned them down. I said, no, I don't, I can't get a band together. We're not really know what to do. We're not super comfortable yet. So he said, okay. Then, I don't know, some weeks later, a month later, I forget what it was, the same guy gets a hold of me and goes, you know, now we got a birthday. That was an anniversary. Now we got a birthday. And is there any way you guys can come? So a couple weeks have gone by. I checked in with a couple of the guys, and we got, you know, a quartet together. Drums, tuba, a couple of horns. And it was a beautiful experience. We showed up in the driveway. We went up to the yard. His wife came out, super surprised, dancing on the front porch. We did our 30-minute set, and it was all cool.
So we decided that we would do some things like that. One reason, because we're really suited to that kind of thing. We don't need amplification.
We're perfectly mobile. I mean, we don't need to be plugged in. I normally play with an amp if we're in the club, but the whole point of the brass band is, you know, comes from the old Salvation Army thing where you can't get the sinners to church, so let's take church to the sinners. And that's what we did. We went and saw everybody.
A couple of my favorite things about the band is that we are mobile. So we can take a show that's on the stage and we can take it to the street, we can march around, we can do a parade. It's pretty cool, pretty unique to be able to take the party wherever we go. I don't have a lot of experience with that.
We did a couple things in a couple city parks, which were great. It was nice to see people being able to get out, walk by, hear some music, maybe hang out and enjoy something a little bit different.
And it wasn't just about, you know, the band needs to play, or we need a gig, or we want the creative outlet. We knew that people were hungry for it, that people were needing that at the moment.
Been great for the band and for the audiences that we've been able to play for. You know, to be able to spread a little bit of joy that way, where people have been cooped up, quarantined. You know, that's certainly helped a lot of people doing that. Brought a lot of joy to people that didn't really have too much.
The people that were involved in those, that had hired the band, that happened to be next door to the people that hired the band, just the look on their faces, they were so happy, they were so excited because there was live music. You know, it was in their yard, it was in their driveway, it was in the middle of their street.
It's been nice to be able to get out, you know, even in all this and play a little bit. Good to, you know, play with the other guys in the band and keep things going that way.
But we did also a few just go out and play. Like we went to Schiller Park, we went to Good Ale a couple of times, maybe another neighborhood where we just went out and played just for the sake of playing. And I remember that Schiller Park one because we roamed around a little bit, but we ended up setting up by that little amphitheater where they do the Shakespeare in the Park. And even though people were spread out, there was still apprehension in the air and everything. But you could just see, like, when we started playing, you could just see, like, some people gathered a little bit, and you could just see, like, the shoulders dropping. You could see, like, a little bit of relaxation, a little bit of ease now, like, maybe a little bit of normalcy, maybe just a little bit of joy, maybe just a little bit of live music. And that was really encouraging to us, and something that we, you know, I personally can say I love doing because, you know, being able to share that with people made a lot of difference for myself and for the band.
Well, I think New Basics really gave me a start in everything that's a part of my current professional career, at least in performance. I didn't know what a monitor was. I didn't know how to use one. I didn't know how to use a microphone. I was a tuba player.
I would say that New Basics for me has been a proving ground, a development ground.
Well, when I think back over these past 25 years, what I realize is in many ways I grew up in this band. You know, we started out early 20s, kids, and over these past 25 years, I've learned about business, I've learned some stuff about music, I've learned about relationships, leadership, and many of those lessons came from doing things badly or making mistakes in those areas. So some of those lessons were earned, I guess you could say.
You know, when you go to music school and you spend years trying to learn how to play your instrument, play music, when you get out of school, you don't necessarily know how to play your instrument. That kind of thing really happens in live working settings. So New Basics was that working setting for me. That's where I really learned how to play.
Yeah, everything that I learned about being in the biz, I pretty much learned in those first several years with New Basics.
Joining New Basics was one of the coolest things that happened to me, especially at that time in the Columbus music scene. We've done these gigs where like they're really just about connecting with the community, and I guess I didn't really realize until I started doing that with New Basics that was something that I not only enjoyed, but it has become a big part of my life.
The thing I appreciate most about being in the band is the level of camaraderie with all the guys. We are all, at a certain point, perfectionists, but we're all very compassionate and passionate. Someone will have a great idea, we'll work it. Someone will have an idea that's not so good, and we'll work around it. I've made my share of gaffes in this band, especially when I was learning, and everybody was always very supportive. I feel like lifted up in this band.
I've been playing with the New Basics for 17 of the past 25 years. And I think one of the great things about playing with this band has been just being able to play a different type of music than I probably would have otherwise. There's really nothing like this, around Columbus or, anywhere in the area. So it's great to, have a different outlet and kind of be able to stretch and, play in some different styles and do some different things than, I normally would with a lot of the other bands that I play with.
And it's just been a real honor to work with all the people that have been in and out of the band over these years. And to me, it's just a real privilege and honor to see the commitment that everybody else has to this, and how we're keeping on after all this time.
It's been great to get to know people and develop friendships and relationships, with all the great people that have played in the band over the years, from the very beginning, up through now.
I hope that what I was a part of in the beginning served as something, and I definitely hope that this band continues a long time into the future, because we've got a lot more music to play.
As to what's next, what the next years will hold, however many there are, I would love to get involved with some more of those collaborations like we do with Brass and Grass, whether it's another arts organization or other kind of band, mix some genres, do something fun. And really to just be open to possibilities, because I work with a lot of brilliant, creative people. So at this point in the game, it's more about being a facilitator for other good ideas, I think. And I might have a couple of my own, we'll see. But what a blast, what a journey, and let's see what happens.
Thank you.